Russian officials were undoubtedly shocked by how quickly the West and its allies imposed sanctions on Russia's foreign exchange reserves, which were reduced by around half. The Central Bank of Russia and several countries like China basically admitted and clearly noticed how quickly and stealthily the US Treasury moved during the period. As a move to address the perceived US hegemony of the IMF, Russia is ready to develop new global reserve currency alongside China and other BRICS nations in a potential challenge to the dominance of the US dollar. This chess move will allow BRICS to build their sphere of influence and unit of currency within that sphere. Does BRICS having its reserve currency threaten the West and the US dollar's hegemony? And what is the likelihood of its success as a global reserve currency? Let's find out. At a meeting in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in 1944, 44 countries agreed to fix their currencies to the dollar, which in turn was fixed to gold at a $35 an ounce. The US kept the dollar price of gold fixed and adjusted the supply of dollars to maintain confidence in future gold convertibility. Yet by 1970, the rest of the industrialized world had accumulated such a large dollar holdings that the US did not have sufficient gold to credibly keep maintaining convertibility. Thus, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in August of 1971. The value of the dollar then plummeted relative to other currencies on global exchanges. To prop it up, Nixon and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger made a deal with Saudi Arabia and the OPEC countries that OPEC would sell oil only in dollars and that the dollars would be deposited in Wall Street and City of London banks. In return, the US would defend the OPEC countries militarily. Now, economists have been researching the possibility of de-dollarizing the world economy for a while. Most agreed that the question was not if would happen, but when. Expanding US sanctions are causing a swift shift in the world's currency markets, jeopardizing the dollar's hegemony. And the most recent round of US sanctions against Russia might be the turning point, since many nations would suffer severe economic losses from the sanctions. We see central banks attempting to diversify their holdings by including conventional assets like the Swedish krona and the South Korean won, and non-traditional ones like the yuan. Recently, at one of the BRICS forums, President Putin announced that Russia, alongside China and other BRICS nations, was getting ready to launch a new global reserve currency made up of a basket of BRICS currencies. If successful, such a reserve currency would directly threaten the currently dominant US dollar. President Vladimir Putin signaled the new reserve currency would be based on a basket of currencies from the group's members Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Also, Iran, which holds the world's second largest gas reserves, has applied to join BRICS group. Does the BRICS reserve system stand a chance against the greenback? When measured for purchasing power parity, the BRICS currently account for around 31.5% of global GDP. This increases to 33% of global GDP when Iran and Argentina are included. This is a sizable potential trading bloc, and 33% of the world's GDP more than suffices to support a reserve currency. Although BRICS is not a reserve currency in an actual sense, but an alternative to the IMF's special drawing right SDR. The SDR by the IMF is not a currency, but rather a pool of claims on major reserve currencies, including the dollar, euro, pound, yen, and its newest addition, the renminbi. For now, the presumption is that the BRICS reserve basket will comprise real, rubles, rupees, renminbi, and rand. However, there is a possibility that the BRICS basket currency would draw reserves not just from the group's members, but also from nations currently inside its sphere of influence. These include the Middle Eastern and South Asian countries. In addition, there is huge room for cooperation between the nations. Together, the enlarged BRICS nations presently account for around 26% of the world's oil production and 50% of the production of the iron ore needed to produce the steel. Approximately 40% of the world's corn and 46% of the world's wheat are produced there. If all of them were transacted in the new reserve currency, it would right away establish itself as a pillar of the global economy. Let's imagine what that would look like if BRICS launched its reserve currency. That would be a mega disaster for the US dollar, the currency of a service-based economy that produces very little. While most analysts believe there is a chance for the BRICS system, OANA's senior market analyst Jeff Haley seems to have a different opinion according to a Business Insider report. Jeff believes there is no foreseeable threat to the dominance of the US dollar in the near future. It is the currency of the largest economy used in the world's largest and deepest capital markets and is freely convertible. Unlike 4 of the 5 currencies in the BRICS, which are managed currencies, in China's case, the yuan is not convertible and is managed against a basket of currencies, of which the US dollar has the largest weighting. There's also a question of conversion, whether there are restrictions on how a currency is traded on the foreign exchange market. For example, those who want to trade high amounts of India's rupee, for instance, must get approval first. So Jeff Haley believes while investors might be concerned about this apparent fresh threat to dollar dominance, these factors suggest the greenback won't face losing its pole position anytime soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of On Finance. My name's Ray, and a friendly reminder, make sure you check out all of our social media to keep yourself up to date on the latest finance news worldwide. Thank you.